So today I want to make a start on talking about creation and manifesting from presence. Another way to say that is creation from 5D, fifth dimensional manifestation and fifth dimensional creation. I'll unpack those in a moment. But the reason why I'm talking about this is for a long time I've searched for a way of working with creative energies in a way that is not triggering of the ego, should we say. Because when I looked at traditional law of attraction material, a lot of it seemed to be, well, if you can get whatever you want, so whatever you want, you focus on, and then you'll get it or stand a high chance of getting it. And while part of me was excited by this, and I realized, well, it's a step up from where I'd been, and I'd found that when I was trying to exercise these things, another part of me would be holding back, and it was the fear of basically the fear of creating something that was not in my best interests. And the question kept coming up is, how do I know that this is what is ultimately of my good? If I'm intending to create something and I'm positively affirming it and I'm doing vision boards and all that, how do I know that that is not leading me further into a kind of ego trap, that I'm creating stuff and then that I'm putting my happiness outside of me in a future when this thing arrives? Or even the very act of raising your frequency sometimes to what you desire, which is what the law of attraction teachings teach. Very good stuff, by the way. If you really look into it, there can be a subtle rejection of the now and what is and who you are in this moment. So those are some of the reasons why for years although I've studied law of attraction material and been very excited by it and put it into effect, there's always been something that's held me back about actually using it more, or teaching it, or professing it more out there. Because while I think it's fantastic stuff, I think there's some drawbacks to it. And I know that many people who are on a spiritual journey have had the same question of, am I creating by ego, by wanting more stuff, by wanting these things to happen? So in this series of videos, I will attempt to unpack some of this and see if we can access that place of creating which is beyond ego. And my way, the insight that comes to me, and the map I use is the map of dimensions and how you create in each dimension. So I'll unpack that a little bit now, because we've all heard of this 5D thing and this transition and the shift and the ascension to 5D, whatever that might be. So if I can begin with just unpacking what are those dimensions, what do I mean by them? And of course many authorities, if one can call oneself authority talking about this, we don't really know what we're talking about, but if we intuit it, there are many ways of talking about dimensions, and everyone's got a slightly different take on it. But just briefly, my take on it is, first dimension is your mineral world. It's a consciousness. These are dimensions of consciousness, really. First dimension will be mineral world. Second is your lower life forms, animal, sort of your instinctive realm, your instinctive consciousness. Third dimension is largely where we find ourselves in this daily world. It's the world of Newtonian physics. If you can measure it, that's part of your 3D. If you're observing it and it's measurable and it's part of your solid existence around you. That's what I take as third dimensional, because it's time and then space. Length, breadth, and time gives you those three dimensions. So that's where most of us operate. Now, there's a physical aspect to that, which is third dimensions, which you can do physics calculations and work out all sorts of things in it. And then there's the consciousness dimension, which is, if you talk about a third dimensional consciousness, it's the one rooted in that world, of that particular scientific world, of that particular world of inquiry. It's the world of where I'm separate, bodies are separate, you can measure the movement between them. There's no real such thing as a spirit life. If there is a spirituality at 3D is quite rule-based, and would be like your formal religions would be at that level. So it's following rules, and it's based on the sense that things work in certain ways. So your spirituality would be God has given certain rules, and if you follow those and be a good person, you'll reap the rewards. So at the bottom of that is a feeling of cause and effect. That's very much 3D. Animals at 2D don't have a sense really of much of cause. They're not conscious of cause and effect, although they do operate in that world of cause and effect. But 3D consciousness, we do things to get other things. We do jobs to get money. So there's that linear progression. Most of the world is operating at that level. Okay, so after 3D it begins to get a bit more interesting, and this is where you'll find some disagreement in how people divide up these dimensions. So just for our purposes, I'm saying 4D, fourth dimension, is the realm of the thought, your emotional body. It's the energy field around the body. So it's kind of semi-physical, but most people cannot see it. But it's very much associated with the physical body. So it's your astral, would be your astral body. Speaking of bodies, this third dimensional is the level of your the gross physical body, and then 4D would be your subtle body. And this is the subtle body that is worked on. If you do yoga, you'll start to access the subtle body. You'll feel the subtle energies. If you do qigong or these forms that use energy, that is very much that level of it. It's semi-physical energy. It's also the realm of your dreams. It's the realm of thought, and it's the realm of law of attraction. Because you are working with your energy field, you're working with your emotional body, then your emotional and thought body. So that is really a great step up in consciousness, because if you're only thinking 3D, you're only thinking very linear and rule-based, and so life becomes, well, to get money I've got to do this job, and if I don't have the right type of job I'm not going to make that money, and it becomes it's very competitive realm. So when you take the step into 4D and you start working with your energy and with your thoughts and emotions, it's quite a leap of consciousness, because now you gain a greater level of autonomy, because you realize that you have a large degree of control over your reactions and how you feel about things. So you begin to get more skillful at letting stuff go. You begin, if you want to create, you will begin to vision board and imagine. And just the act of vision boarding and writing down a plan can make you feel a lot better. I also call this realm of, when you're operating in 4D, it's the realm of empowerment. 3D tends to be a home of victimhood. Not all of it, because of course you can be very active and very non-victim feeling in 3D, but you're using 3D methods. But if you fall into victimhood, that's, by my understanding, quite a 3D construct, because it's very much a duality. It's like something's happening to me, something from the outside world is happening to me, and I'm the receiver, the helpless receiver of it. So then you learn something about law of attraction and you become empowered. So you enter an empowerment phase and you say, well, anything that I imagine I can have, I just have to feel it and to vision it and to take steps, and that becomes an empowering message. That's empowerment. So we've got victimhood, and then we've got empowerment, and parts of 3D are also empowered. If you're taking disempowered action, very action orientated, and then 4D is very mentally and emotionally action orientated. Okay. So that leaves us with, at most teachings at 4D, with the law of attraction as almost like the highest spiritual state. And by the way, you can even have your spirituality at 4D is think of yoga, think of, well, not yoga, popularly yoga, you could say it is meditating. If I meditate, I will achieve this and this. I'm meditating to quiet my mind. It is a lot of New Age spirit. In fact, all of if I can maybe say, a large proportion of New Age spirituality is 4D, because when you're talking angels and guides, and well, those characters are astral realm. They appear as forms, and once again, it is like a relationship we have with them. So it's a me, subtle I, and then a you, which is Archangel Michael or whatever. Can you see there's a I thou. There's a relationship of two, and that can be very warm, very juicy, spiritual feeling. And by in itself, there's nothing wrong with it. And of course, that is a step up from not having anything like that. So when one goes into 4D, one is establishing a relationship with an inner realm, and then there are inner beings, and then one has fun going on inner journeys. So a lot of perhaps even shamanic practices, modern shamanic practices, are where you go on spirit journeys and do soul retrievals and all that. And by the way, I've used that in my work, and I still do, because sometimes it's very useful. Sometimes that is what is required. Healing at that level. There are subtle different. There are now become subtle issues that if you start to think about and experience it, because also if you look at the cracks that start to appear, it's firstly there's a you, and then there's an other, the angel, the god, the whatever that you're in a relationship with. So there's two, and then when you're doing healing, there's an assumption of something's wrong. So like, I've lost part of my soul, I've got to go and fetch it, and we've got to do this work. And that work will happen in linear time, even though we are beyond time. So 4D, interesting thing with time is that you'll do a process in this present time, but you could go back to a past life or future life. So time is more malleable, but yet it is still a factor. If everybody was working at 4D, this world would be a very beautiful place, very empowered, very gentle, very beautiful. We'd still be creating from ego a lot of the time, but it would be more the enlightened ego. So that's why I'm saying I'm not knocking this at all. I'm just saying, if you're curious about what lies beyond it, this is what this video is about. So 4D is your subtle ego, your enlightened ego, because there's still attachment. So if you're focusing on creating with your vision boards, and that if you watch carefully, you'll see your subtle attachment coming in. So when that doesn't happen, when the manifestation doesn't take effect, you're heartbroken, or you might think this is all a lot of bullshit, and you close it down and you go back to being a normal 3D human. So that's kind of where the teachings of this level fail a little bit. And I've got sometimes I might express a little bit of feistiness towards some law of attraction teachings, because they promote this idea that if you're a good little boy or girl, you'll get what you want, which is really like childish. So if you think positive, you'll get it. Or if you think negative, you're going to create negative circumstances. That's really just a guideline. It's not a linear relationship, in fact, at all. And the subtle lie in that is that you're not allowed to feel your pain. You're not allowed to feel your negativity. So that's for me the great drawback. That's where this model ends. Is the very human fact of living is that inevitably we have pain and suffering, and that to label that as wrong and to label that as something you've got to get over if you want to create, that's plain actually bullshit. It's not humane. At the core of it is the essence of there's a good aspect to it. Yes, do as much as you can to feel good, because when you're in 3D and victimhood, you'll gain immense power more by accessing positive and changing your brain frequencies and changing your whole programming to be more positive. Wonderful. But no matter how positive you become, you will not be free of the pain of existence. So that we need a different way of approaching. 4D, 3D and 4D are still relative, so you're getting relative benefit. By thinking positive, you're gaining relative, so you'll gain stuff, you'll gain things, but you will not gain enlightenment that way. You'll not gain deep realization that way. Your soul is not at that level of 4D. And no matter how much time you spend meditating on raising your frequency, and you will achieve a relative benefit. And if relative benefit is good in the relative world, if we're all doing that, it would be wonderful. The world will relatively be a much better place. It will be a mature spirituality instead of not mature as it is now. That is not yet what we'd call insight and transcendence level of spirituality, of humanity's existence. And that is what the 5D coming in now is all about, and the transition is about the insight and transcendence. So you're less separate human with needs and desires that you're trying to have met, but are 5D. Now let's talk about 5D. So 5D is what is here now, and the beautiful thing about 5D is that you're already in it, and that even if you're operating day to day in your 3D existence, you can do mathematical calculations and all that, and your mind can be focused there, but you're dwelling within, and your spirit and your being is in the 5D, and the 5D is resonating always at technically its pure form has no qualities. There's no qualities, and yet the first emergence out of 5D begins to show qualities of being, which we would label as joy, subtle bliss, curiosity, peace, energy, steadfast, what is the word? Standing in truth, ruthless truth. These are qualities of being, and these are already available to you. Now, the point I wish to make is that that no matter how life in this moment is feeling full of upheaval, so you can do your 4D work, you can do breathing, you can do focusing, you can get that, you can relatively get into a better space, but it will always leave you relatively unsatisfied, unsatisfied. It's only so far you can go with it until you know about 5D. When 5D, fifth dimensional being, is already here, already now. It is already, your eternal bliss consciousness is here now, simply unnoticed. And the key that I want to hammer in here is you do not need to get your body and mind to that place of bliss in order to partake of it. So we'll try to think it's linear. So you've got to get my thoughts right, I've got to get my feelings right, and and then I feel bliss. And then but what you're doing then is you're simply feeling the relative bliss of a biophysiological state of coherence, of a heart-mind coherence, if you like, which creates feelings of bliss. That is wonderful. It's beautiful. If we all did that, it would be a very lovely planet. But it is relative. You see now the hook, the catch comes in, because now you will always be on the cycle of having to manage your emotional state, which in itself is not bad, but it becomes work. And if this is all you're doing, you're not realizing that behind all this, no matter how agitated you are, no matter how irritable, how you reject yourself, no matter how much, is the pure bliss of the 5D awareness, which is your soul, more like your soul level, which is already in bliss. And this is what they call the peace of God that passes all human understanding, is beyond understanding. So you can't think your way to it, you can't breathe your way to it, focus your way to it, nothing. It's here now. So we can bring rest into our work, because knowing that no matter how hard you try, at 3D and 4D level, you'll never achieve the bliss and peace that you're looking for. Only temporary and only relatively, and that there's only so much you can do. So my message here is very much of that is quite okay to let go and be in your failure, because the human condition will bring failure because of the relative nature of this existence. and that's built in. You can look at the primary Western myth of the crucifixion. So Jesus did not get off the cross. So that metaphor is saying that your human aspect is always always subject to crucifixion. No matter how clever you are, what you do, how good you become as a manifester. You see people like to talk about, I'm a manifester, I do this and this and this. It's just making up more I am, more I, more I, more I. If that is pleasing to you, then that is good. But for those who it's not pleasing to, there's a part that is already pre-existing, that is already here now, that cares nothing about your successes or your failures. Absolutely, it's not. It shines like the sun on the world. It does not care about it does not care about the clouds. It is the pre-existing, always eternal, always present self. And it's as simple as stopping everything and noticing what is here now. And when you notice what is here now, you will start to notice that amongst and coexisting with your pain is a form of bliss. Could be stillness, could be curiosity. And that is also the realm of the I am. So you can also focus on the sense of I exist. Ask yourself this one question now: do you exist? And if you you would probably say yes, and I'd start to ask, how do you know? How do you know you exist? Let's just try that now. How do you know you exist? Well, if I answer that, for me, it's like I just know I exist because I know that I exist. There's something here that knows. So the knowing is you. There's only one thing you can be sure of, is that you exist. Everything else is subject to erasure. There's only one thing, if you reduce everything, is I exist. Or even something exists. Something knows. There's a knowing, something knows. And this knowing is really who we are, this knowing, simple knowing. And that is simple knowing is available all the time. And that knowing is equatable with I am. I am, if you feel into it, I am is like the embodied sense of knowing. If you feel into I am, it's almost like in front of you. It's embodied knowing, and there are other fields of knowing. Perhaps those are what people would call higher Ds, 60, 70, whatever. For now, don't bother about those. 5D is the one we should look at, and that is the I am, and then I am, pure I am. That's all you need. So now then you can create from this point. We won't go into that now, but maybe next time. To create from this point from this bliss. So it comes through you. It comes through, and you're not in control. So this is the level of surrender. So now, if 3D is home of a victimhood and some empowerment, and then 4D is your empowerment place, 5D is your surrender place. Surrender to the now. So you're finding the peace of now, of non-resistance to now. So even if you have resistance in your body, that's fine. You just find the yes to that. You just find that place was non-resisting to your resistance. So everything becomes okay. So even though you are irritated or depressed or whatever you've been trying to fix, you can let that go at 5D. You just let it go, because that stuff is mostly not solvable. And it's good to do your 4D work of trying to solve it, but let the rest, whatever's not solved, just let it go. It does not affect the sun, which is shining eternally, which is the real you, the knowing I am. I am. That's a brief intro to 5D. So this is Paving the Ground. We'll discuss more in next videos. If I want to leave you with one thing today is be encouraged um, about your failures, because there's only so much you can do, and your work is simply to do what you can, be empowered as much as you can, do your work of 3D, your actions, do your work of 4D, your visioning and that, and then know at a certain point when to let all that shit go and just to be present and let something flow through you that is not from your conscious mind. You have official permission to let all that shit go. How does that feel? Whatever's not here, fuck it. It's not here. It doesn't have to be here. Okay. Let's leave it there for today. I'll be talking more, so you can follow this channel for more of this subject. Cheers for now.